Hello, welcome everybody. I'm starting this a minute or so early so that people can filter in. There's already quite a few of you here. We may end up with a full house today. So welcome. If you haven't already done so, put your location and tell us where you're joining from in the chat. I'd love to know what time it is in India and Spain. Lots of people joining from all over the place. So bienvenue et bienvenidos. And that's all the languages I got. I don't know how to say that in Hindi for our Indian fellows who are joining. So there's a couple of things I'd like to just tell you about this platform, Webinar Ninja. If you've not used it before, it's a little bit different than Zoom. Many of you have already found the chat and you're chatting away. That's great. My husband, Rob, is in the chat and he'll be helping me moderate and answer questions. He'll be helping you with technical issues if you have those in the chat. It's also our anniversary today, so happy anniversary to us. There's also down below the video, if you're watching on your computer, scroll the video feed up a little bit, and underneath where you see me, there you should see 3 tabs. So you'll see questions, polls, and offers. Those will come up later when you have a choice to buy the program, if you make a decision. Okay, so questions is where you will put things if you have questions about Luminar AI. So if you have tech questions, please put those in the chat and Rob will help you with those. If you have questions about the program, put them underneath in the questions tab. Right? There's also 2 polls that I've started, and I'd love to know if you are currently using Luminar, which version you have, or if you don't have it, and if you are using it as a plugin or a standalone. Okay, because the answers to the questions that you have are going to depend on how you're using it, as well as which version you're using. Okay, so. To just get started here a little bit, I will have a slide presentation for you that is going to answer a bunch of questions that you probably already have. And I've been collecting questions by email. You've sent in a lot of them. I have over 60. So I will stay and answer all of them until we get to the end. So watch the slide presentation. I'm going to give you all of the information and clarify a few things for you that may have been confusing. And then at the end of the slide presentation, if you still have questions, please use the question tab below. So maybe hold off on asking those questions until you watch the slides, because I may answer some of the ones that are fairly straightforward in the slide presentation. Then when I get to the questions, I'm going to do my best to answer them. But please keep in mind that I only just learned about this about 9 days ago myself, but I have had 3 chances to have briefings with the Skylum team. I had a one-on-one with one of the higher up team members, so I have a pretty good idea of what it's all about and what they're trying to do with this program. So I should be able to answer most of your questions. If some of them are specific to you, we can take it to email later, or I may tell you to get in touch with support to ask them if I don't know the answer, or I will find out for you. So we're all in this together. It's uncharted territory, uncharted waters. So let's dive in, for lack of a better term. I see lots of people I know. Boris, Chris, awesome. I saw Nana. I've got people from all over the world here. So I can't imagine what time it is in Europe. It must be early there. So kudos to you guys for staying up late or getting up early to join in. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to put my slides. Okay, so I'm going to put myself, let's reverse that. I'm going to put myself in the bottom corner like this. So if I'm overlapping the text on the slide, because I won't be able to see that, let me know and I will change the layout. So if you can't see the words on the slides, let me know and I'll change the layout. Excuse me. Okay, so here we go. Luminar AI. So I had a couple of emails, people calling it Luminar A1. So just to be clear, it is an I, which stands for artificial intelligence. Okay, so it's Luminar AI. What is it? Okay, that is the question of the day, right? So this is a brand new product. It is not I will cover that later. It is not an extension of Luminar 4. So it is a brand new product rebuilt from the ground up with an AI technology base and an AI engine. So all of the things running it in the background are based on artificial intelligence. It's based on the program analyzing your images and being able to make adjustments for it, what it thinks is going to do. And I know there's going to be questions about that, but let's just hang on. Can you guys still see the text now? Tell me in the chat if my face is overlapping. Looks fine? Okay. Okay, so what they're doing is it's an entirely new approach to editing. It's different than anything else that's on the market, and it's designed to be simple, easy, fun, and fast. Okay. Yes, you do get full control. So that is one of the questions that has come up quite a bit, is if this all has AI underneath the engine and lots of the tools are AI, can I still adjust them? Yes, you can. So if you're currently using Luminar 4, you know that you can do accent AI and you can adjust the slider, you can do a sky adjustment and so on. You can do face adjustment, and there's lots of sliders within that AI for you to adjust. Okay, so yes, you can still adjust it. So what it creates is then it's a perfect combination between the artificial intelligence analyzing your images and doing things automatically for you, which makes it much faster, and your expertise. And you get to decide which side of that scale you want to fall on, and you may vary based on the images. Sometimes you may want to just do a quick and easy edit and get it out the door in 2 minutes. Use the AI. Right? It can still act as a standalone program like Luminar 4 does, or as a plugin. Okay, there's some changes to that, and I will come up to that in a bit. Okay, so if you currently are using it as a plugin for Lightroom or Photoshop, you will be able to continue to do so with Luminar AI. Okay. What has changed is it's got more AI or artificial intelligence. I'm just going to say AI right now, moving forward, because it's shorter. So it has Sky AI like we have now in Luminar 4, but it also it's taking the portrait AI and splitting it up. So now there's a face AI, a body AI, an iris AI to just affect the eyes. And I have some example images to show you on that. So keep in mind that I have not seen the program yet, and most of the people that have done the briefings with me haven't either. So it's been beta tested by a group of, I think, 200 photographers, but the rest of us haven't even seen it yet, and we don't have access to it yet. So all I have is screenshots at this point, right? Another one which is new is Atmosphere AI, which is then going to apply to landscape photography, okay? So they're advertising this as the first fully AI-powered image editing software ever in the world. Okay, so this is brand new territory, like I said. Okay, one of the other things that has come up quite a lot and people have seen is that layers are now gone. Okay, so yes, the layers functionality is gone, but what they found in their research with the beta testers was that less than 1 or 2% were actually using the layers. So rather than continuing to try and solve the problem, because when you add more and more layers, that's actually what's going to slow down the program quite a bit. Okay, I've heard of things like people adding image layers, lots of multiple image layers or texture layers, or even when you're doing multiple cloning, each time you do cloning or healing or erasing, that adds a new layer, and that was actually really slowing down the program to the point where it was unusable. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. I'm just gonna mute myself for a second here so you don't hear. Okay. So what will happen is the layers are now going to be changing into a new tool. Again, I haven't seen this, so I can't really speak to how it will work. But what I'm told is that it will have a lot of the functionality of the things that you're doing with the layers. Like, for example, the cloning tool will now happen on the original layer, and it won't be adding a layer. So it will eliminate a lot of those speed issues that people have been having with Luminar 4. Right? This is a big one, okay? No, you cannot take your Luminar 3 or 4 catalog and migrate it or transfer it to Luminar AI. Because the base is different, because the engine is different, they don't speak to each other. Okay, so Luminar 4 and AI will not talk to each other. So it's a one or the other type of situation. And I have more on that in a bit, so bear with me. Okay, you can, however, this is another question that came up by email, transfer all of your looks. So anytime you've created a look for Luminar 4, you can save those and transfer those over to Luminar AI. Some of them may work slightly differently or they may look a little different, but once you transfer them, you can apply it to an image, tweak it a little bit, and then just save or update that look so that it works with Luminar AI, the new program. Okay, is my image cutting off the text now? Do I need to change my display? Can you guys still see the text? It's all good? Okay. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so another new thing inside of Luminar AI is something called templates. So you will still have looks where you can click on something and add a style to your image, but now you have something called templates. So they've taken the AI a step farther and they've taken the analysis of your image a lot farther. So you'll be able to have templates for, say, for example, landscape images and portrait images, or even things like street or architecture. Okay, how many templates or what kind is up to you. Some will come with the program, and I'm imagining there'll be availability of purchasing extra or sharing and so on. Okay, my face is covering up the last point. Thank you. I will fix that. How's that? How's that, Danelle? Okay. So with the templates, how they will work is if you open a portrait image or an image with a person, it's going to recognize that there's a face in the image and suggest to you some templates that might look good on this image. So if you want to do a really, what I call quick and dirty edit, but let's just call it quick and easy rather than quick and dirty. All right. So if you want to do a really quick and easy edit, you could just choose a template based on its suggestion and you could be done with one click. It's that simple, okay? So again, if you want to edit more, you can continue. So who is this for? Okay. If you want, this is what they are really marketing, okay? So this comes directly from their marketing information, and then I'm going to add some of my own thoughts on this. Okay, so what they're saying is if you want amazing photos right out of the gate without complexity or a lot of time spent, then this is for you. Luminar AI is for you. Okay. If you want to solve problems and fix images quickly and easily, this is for you. Okay. This is something that they, again, surveyed their beta testers, and people were more concerned or cared more about the results, as in the finished image, more than the process of how did they get there. Okay. So if you are baking a cake, does it matter what steps you took or how you baked it or whether you baked it in an oven or the microwave, as long as the cake tastes good, right? So it's how do you get to the end and what is the end result that is the most important, is what your image looks like, right? That was overwhelming what people told them, okay? These are my thoughts now, okay? If you are new to Luminar, okay, if you are new to photography or photo editing in general, if you've just picked up a camera or you're not shooting raw yet, you haven't processed your images or you haven't even bought a software, then I would say this is going to be for you. If you want to spend less time in front of the computer and more time out shooting, then this is going to be for you. Okay. If you don't need advanced or complex editing tools, then this is probably going to be for you. And I'll talk a little bit more about what some of those things might be and who it might not be for in a moment, in another section. Okay. In addition, they're also marketing it as for visual communicators and professionals. Okay, so that may include people like us or like yourself who are a hobby or amateur photographer, but it also may include bloggers, people who post photos on Instagram, business owners, somebody that owns a manufacturing or makes a product, or even crafters. Let's say people that make jewelry or knit or something and put their products up on Etsy, but they need nice photos of their products, okay? Could also be for students and teachers. Teachers may need images for presentations like this one, okay? Students may need images for reports or things that they're writing, okay? So it has a much broader appeal than a traditional photo editor. So here's a quick peek inside, and you may have seen some of this if you've already browsed the website. Okay, so this is looking at the new Face AI. So it's going to do things like slimming the face, adjusting the skin, and so on, similar to the Portrait AI. And again, I'm making some educated guesses here based on what I've seen and what I've heard. I've not actually seen the program yet. Okay. Landscape, this is going to be in terms of the atmosphere adjustment. It's going to have the sky enhancement. You'll still have the sun rays. You'll still have sky replacement. Okay, so all of those tools for landscape that are in Luminar 4 are still going to be there, plus more. Okay. Now this one is really cool, and I'm excited about this one because this is something I used to do in Photoshop, and then I figured out how to do it in Lightroom, and now you can do it with one click and a slider in Luminar, and that is the iris enhance. So take a look at this girl's eyes really carefully here, right? And look at the after. The color, the brilliance, the sharpness, and they just absolutely sparkle, right? Let's take a look at another example with the Iris AI. Look at how dark her eyes are here. And look at the sparkle. So it brings out the color. It has the artificial intelligence to analyze where the iris is and to enhance just that part. Okay. Now, who this is not for, okay? So if you fall into this category, this may not be for you, okay? If you want or are looking for a standalone replacement for Lightroom, this is probably not going to be the program for you. Right? It's like I said, it's missing a few things, right? However, if you already own Lightroom, it is a powerful time-saving plugin that you can still use with Lightroom or Photoshop, okay? So unfortunately, some of the things that they promised originally in the roadmap, which was from Luminar, I believe 2018 and Luminar 3, they were marketing the product as a replacement or an alternative for Lightroom. And they had a roadmap published on the website saying, this is what we're going to do. This is the direction that we're going. And what they have now done is the roadmap is gone. And what's happening is a lot of people feel abandoned. If you were one that jumped on the Skylum and Luminar bandwagon because you wanted a replacement for Lightroom, because you don't want to pay the subscription fees, you may fall into this category of feeling slightly abandoned, because what's happening is they are ditching that roadmap. Okay, so they're not going that direction anymore. As a company, they've made some decisions to go a different direction. And honestly, I can't say that I disagree from a business standpoint. From a user standpoint, I understand that it's disappointing, and I can't say that I agree with what they're doing, but I understand why they're doing it. Because instead of trying to make a Lightroom clone and compete with Adobe, they're actually creating something completely different and trying to reinvent the photo editing industry and make it much simpler and easier for everybody to have access to tools that make good images. Okay? So if you are in this category, if you purchased it because you were looking for a Lightroom alternative, don't despair just yet. Over the next few weeks, what I'm going to be doing is reviewing several other softwares that I think may fit the bill. So I know that's not the answer that you want because you bought in with Lightroom or with Luminar and you were hoping that that was going to solve the problems. If it's not, I'm going to be looking at On1's RAW processor, Topaz Studio, probably Alien Skin Exposure, and also DxO Lab. So I'm going to be looking at about 4 different alternatives, and I'll have reviews for you over the next few weeks as to which one I think may be the best solution. And one may fit for different people, okay? So take a look at those if you fall in this category. So now, if you're still with me and you're still interested in more Luminar AI, I have a lot of questions, or I've received a lot of questions about pricing. So here's the scoop on that. Okay, so it is available now for pre-order. Okay, so what that means is it is priced to sell lower, and they are going to release it, or it's going to be shipped. What they've said is the holiday season, and by that really they mean around Christmas or the end of the year. Okay, so it's probably going to ship by the end of the year. Right? If you order it now, it's $69 for the first 30,000 people that order it. Okay. If you have an existing copy of Luminar or Aurora HDR, you will get $10 off. Okay, so that's like the loyalty discount. Okay, and I'm going to address that price as well, because people have said, well, it's not that great of a discount. So here's the thing. My thoughts on that are it's already fairly inexpensive compared to most of the others on the market. If you want to go buy, say, Topaz, for example, you have to buy their package or their kit, which is somewhere around $200. So you're spending a lot more money. If you get Adobe, you're spending $120 a year. Okay, these are all US figures. DxO is $129. So it's still one of the least expensive options on the market. And they've given you the best discount that they had because they put a lot of research and development into this. So they still need to make some of that back, right? The other thing that's happened is that if you are used to, or you've purchased it before, you're used to having 2 licenses, meaning you can have it on a laptop and a desktop, right? Now they've changed that to 1 seat. So when you buy it, you get 1 license, and if you want an additional one, then it's $10 per license, okay? So if you want it on multiple computers. For example, if Rob and I want to use it, I have a laptop, he has a desktop, we would just buy 1 extra seat. So the second person in the same household is paying $10. Okay. If you have my discount code, which is Digital Photo Mentor, discount codes, mine or others, are not applicable to the pre-order price. Right. So once it ships, like I said, by the holiday season, okay, once it ships, you'll have 30 days to get your money back. So once you have it in your hands, if you pre-order it, you have 30 days to try it. And if you don't like it, you return it and you get your money back. Okay. So, but you have to order it now and be within that 30,000 to get that price. Okay. If you order it after it ships, the price is going to be higher. And I don't know what that price is going to be yet. Okay. Normally the Luminar price, like Luminar 4, normally sells for around $89. Okay. So they're already taking $30 off if you are a previous owner. Okay. So $59. That's pretty decent. I buy a lot of different software for my website and for running things. I pay for the webinar software that we're using. We pay for that. I pay for a calendar app monthly. I pay for Adobe. I pay for all kinds of things on our website. So it's not that much in the grand scheme of things. Right? I see lots of questions in the chat. If you could please put your questions in the question tab below, not in the chat, because I'm not going to be able to go through the chat and dig all those out. Okay, so if Rob sees a question, please ask that person to put it in the chat, or if you could just drop that in there for me, Rob, that would be great. Okay, the other thing that includes, if you pre-order at this time, you will get an invitation to what's called the Luminar AI Insider Program. So the Insider Program will give you it's going to give you access to ask questions and some insider information that's going to come out before the actual launch, right? I'm already in there, and there's lots of stuff that's coming out, and people that are in there that have pre-ordered will know the information before everybody else does, basically. Okay, another one I get is, what are the technical specs of what computer do you need to run this? Okay, so for Mac, you need to have at least an i5. You need to have at least 8 gigs of RAM. 16 is better. I just updated to a new MacBook Pro, and mine has 64 gigs, and Luminar 4 runs absolutely fast. Okay, no problems. Okay. You need to have Mac OS 10.13 or 8.6 or higher. Mac 1012 will not be supported anymore, and you need to have at least 10 gigs of hard drive space. Okay, an SSD or a drive is the best. It's going to run the fastest. Okay, so a lot of these specs are similar for Windows. I'll do that one next, but I want to touch on the hard drive space. 10 gigabytes of hard drive space. If you have, for example, a 1 terabyte drive and you only have 10 gigs of space, all your programs are going to run slow. So general rule of thumb is you want to make sure you have at least 25% of your hard drive free and open, and all your programs will run better. So that's general rule of thumb for everything. Okay, these are minimum specs. Here are the specs for Windows machines. So they are similar. Okay, it's recommending, and I don't know what these mean. I'm not a Windows person. Okay, so again, 16 gigs of RAM is recommended. It will not support Windows 7 and 8.1. Okay, and you need to have at least that graphics card or better. Okay. Okay, plugin support. I mentioned that there are some changes here. Okay, so it will still continue. So this is Luminar AI. Okay, it will work with Lightroom Classic, anything after Lightroom 6 and newer. It will work with Photoshop, anything CS5 and newer. And it will work for the Mac Photos program, okay, which used to be called iPhotos. It will no longer work for Apple Aperture, which is a discontinued program. It's been discontinued for quite some time. And part of that is just that Apple doesn't support it. So why should Luminar, okay? And it's also not supporting Photoshop Elements, okay? And I think that has to do with if you're using Photoshop Elements, it's more of a program that is very similar to Luminar and Luminar AI, and they're kind of not working compatible. Luminar Photoshop Elements, when I tried it, I wasn't actually crazy about it. So if you are using Elements, I might actually recommend that you make the switch. Pick one or the other is kind of the answer there. Okay. Okay, so what Luminar AI is not, okay? It is not an update to Luminar 4, okay? So as I mentioned before, your catalog will not transfer, okay? It will not migrate. It is not Luminar 5. It is not the new generation, okay? It is not the progression of Luminar 4. It is not PhotoLeamer. PhotoLeamer was a program that came out that they introduced, I think, a couple of years ago, that it was fully automatic. It had one button, and that was it. Okay, it is not PhotoLeamer. There is much more adjustability and editability that you have that PhotoLeamer does not. Okay? It is not fully automated. Okay, as I just mentioned, you still get control. So you'll be able to apply a look and tweak the sliders just like you do now in Luminar 4. Here's another thing which is causing a lot of confusion. When you get to the purchase page, you'll see a thing that says subscription. Okay, so a lot of people are sort of getting confused and flipping out and going, oh my God, Luminar is now a monthly subscription like Adobe. No, it's not. Luminar X is not a monthly subscription for the program itself. Not, okay? Still, you pay it and you own it, okay? What it is it's a special package that includes the assets. So that would be things like free looks, extra sky images, texture images, and it will also include things like 4 exclusive tutorials for Luminar AI annually, produced by people like myself, other ambassadors, and other Luminar educators, just for people who have purchased Luminar X. Right? If you've ever looked at On One software, they have a similar subscription program where you get extra bonus materials. So it has nothing to do with a monthly subscription of the program itself. Right? What it is designed to do is to help you use the program and give you access to things that give you a little bit out of creativity boost if you need those little extras, right? And I think it's like $5 a month or something, so it's an extra $60. And I believe you purchase it annually and you can cancel it after that. Right? So now this comes to the part where it gets a little bit sticky because people are questioning as to what is Skylum doing? Why are they doing this? What the heck is going on? Right? So as I mentioned earlier, they are creating a new direction to help you and others that want to create photos that look great but spend less time editing. Right? So they're trying to reinvent the entire process. Most photo editors try and be clones of each other. They're all trying to be clones of Photoshop or Lightroom and do what Adobe does, right? Because Adobe has been doing this since, like, I think I've had Photoshop in one version or other since 1994 or so, right? I think I started with like version 3. So not CS3, like I've been having Photoshop for 25 years, right? So what they're trying to do is create something that's different, starting from a different beginning, right? And it's focused on, as I said earlier, the results, not how you get there or the method that takes you there, but the finished product, okay? Yes, it is moving a little bit away from what they promised before, again, to professional photographers and a professional photo editor, right? I'll touch on that in a moment, okay? So what they're doing is, like I said, they had beta testers, they've got Facebook groups, they've got all kinds of things where they're gathering input from current Luminar users, okay? Current Luminar users and current beta testers as to these are the things that are most requested by those people, right? If 1% of people are using layers, they're saying get rid of it. So what I'm guessing will happen is that if they pre-sell all 30,000 seats and everybody gets a delivery of Luminar AI and 50% people ask for a refund because there's no layers, they're going to put layers back in. Okay, so you can bet that they're absolutely driven by consumer supply and demand. Okay, if for the majority of people are asking for something, it's going to happen. Okay? So what they're trying to do is create something that increases the performance, the speed, which are two things that people have been complaining about, especially with Windows machines for Luminar 4, and simplicity and ease of use, which does not fit with Lightroom and Photoshop that are very complex and difficult. Okay, so they want to create something that runs fast and is easy to use. So I do believe that it's going to address a lot of the bugs and speed issues that people were having with Luminar 4. Okay. All right, so here are my thoughts on the whole shoot and match, okay? I'm interested to try it, okay? I'm excited about it, okay? So originally, I was not crazy about AI when they first came out and announced it for Luminar 4, but then when I tried it, I was actually really blown away, right? So here are some of the pros that I see. As I mentioned earlier, it's still one of the least expensive, if not the least expensive, fully functioning photo editing program. Yes, you can go and get things like GIMP or Darktable that are free, right? But they're not going to have the same type of money to put into research and development, and I don't think those programs stack up. Okay, it's kind of always, you get what you pay for, and I feel that Luminar still is going to pack a good value for your buck, packs a good punch, right? All of these reasons, okay? So for beginners especially, the guided options, it's going to walk you through. Here's some suggestions of what to do for your image. So if you've ever opened an image and looked at it and went, okay, I don't know where to start, okay? Then this process is going to be for you. You're going to like this process, right? If you've spent minutes or hours clicking on looks and presets and seeing what they all do, this is going to streamline the process for you as well, okay? But then you still have the full ability to edit to your liking and adjust things just like you do now. One thing that was asked earlier, and I will address that, is that yes, masks are still available on the tools. Those are not going away, okay? And the fact that you can still use it as a plugin, which is how I use it with Lightroom. So I still have my catalog and all the pro tools that I need to sort and use keywords and metadata and so on, or renaming and all that stuff in Lightroom. And then I have the ability to pull it into Luminar to do the retouching and the editing that I want quickly and come back to Lightroom, right? So it gives you the best of both worlds. The drawbacks or the cons that I see is if you're trying to find a standalone program, it's going to lack some of those full features that Lightroom has. So I find that if you're coming from the Lightroom environment and looking for a replacement, you're going to feel like you're missing something. If you're coming to Luminar with new eyes, you're probably not going to miss anything, okay? If you are one of those people, if you've just come to Luminar as a new user and you've never used Lightroom, tell us in the chat, right? I'd love to hear from you guys as to, do you feel like it's missing anything, right? Because it's kind of like that thing, once you have something and it's taken away, then you miss it. But if you never had it in the first place, you don't know what you're missing, right? Okay, so those are the pros and cons that I see. Okay, this is my recommendations for you. Okay, if you have Luminar 4 now and you love it, then I would say go ahead and get Luminar AI. Okay? You're going to love it as well. Okay, plan now for the migration. Okay, so one other thing I haven't mentioned, and this is something that came up in the questions, is that is Luminar 4 going to be supported and upgraded? Yes, to a point. Okay, so what they've said is that once Luminar AI ships, so let's call it the end of this year, so end of 2020, Luminar AI comes out, you have it in your hands, they will continue to support Luminar 4 for 1 year. Okay, so that's going to be the end of 2021. So that means they will do bug fixes, they will do minor updates and upgrades and a few things that they've said they would do, but there will not be a Luminar 5. Okay. So you have 15 months roughly to plan for this migration. Okay. I recommend being open to try it, right? Think about there's a story that I love, which is the ham story. Okay, now I don't know if any of you have heard this one or not, but there's a story where this lady's cutting off the end of the ham and putting it in the roaster before she goes to cook it. And her husband says, "Why do you cut the end off the ham?" And she says, "I don't know. My mom did it." So he says, "Well, see if you can find out. Well, ask your mom." So she goes and asks her mom, "Why did you cut the end? Why do we cut the end of the ham off before we bake it?" And her mom says, "I don't know. That's what your grandma did. So ask your grandma." So she goes to her grandmother and she says, "Grandmother, why do you cut the end off the ham before you bake it?" And she says, "Oh, well, that's because I had a roasting pan that was too small and I had to cut off the end to get it to fit into the pan." So the moral of the story is, don't necessarily do something just because everybody else does it and everybody else says it's good. Be open to trying and know why you're doing things, and be open to something that's different. Okay. Okay, where's my click? Okay, so continuing my recommendations. If you need Lightroom type capabilities, okay, so if you've come from Lightroom and you are missing those things, then you might have to bite the bullet and pay Adobe, okay? And then you can keep using Luminar 4 as a plugin. It's not going to stop working, right? They're going to support it for another year. And as long as your operating system continues to run it, you can keep using Luminar 4. You don't have to upgrade. You don't have to get Luminar AI. Or you can, okay? But if you need Lightroom capabilities, unfortunately, you may have to look at getting Adobe or consider looking at one of the other programs that I'm going to review over the next few weeks. So I have my work cut out for me, right, to do so. I'm going to be very busy on doing that. The other thing you could do is if you're still not sure, right, just wait until it comes out and you can do a trial with it. Once it's released at the end of the year, there will be a trial version, so you can download it and try it yourself and then make the decision, okay? The only disadvantage of doing that is that you won't get the pre-order price. So you might pay 20 or 30 bucks more for it. I don't know what the post-launch price will be, right? Whew. Okay, so if you could put these links into the chat, Rob. So that is basically all of it in a nutshell. I see that there's 31 questions that have just come in. Hopefully I've answered some of those already, and I've got 55 or 53 other questions. So hopefully I can answer these 80 questions quickly for you. Okay. If you already know that you want to buy Luminar AI at the pre-order price, just click on the offers below. If it's popping up, you may see it above the video as well, and choose the one that is applicable for you. If you are a first-time buyer of Luminar, make sure you use that one. If you are buying it as an update or you have a previous version, and I will show you how to do that actually in a screenshot here. Let me do this. Okay, so let me do a screen share, and I'll show you how to get the loyalty discount and what happens when you buy it. Okay, so can you guys see my screen? Oops. Can you guys see my screen now? Okay, so this is basically the order page, and once you land here, you just click pre-order at the special price, okay? Use our links. So if you use my links, I do get a small commission for every purchase. You will pay the same price, but it helps me to be able to continue providing free tutorials and things on our website. So it just helps us to make a living, right? Give us a nice anniversary present too. So once you click that, you end up on a page that looks like this, okay? And this is where some of the confusion comes in. You see this Luminar X membership. That's the one that I talked about with the extra creative assets, okay? If you don't want that, don't click this. If you want it, click the plus and it will add it, okay? You can also add Aurora at this time. And you'll notice here, you can see that it says early bird price, okay? And you see that it's 1 seat or 2 seats. So if I add a seat, and you'll see mine is in Canadian because I'm in Canada. So it recognizes and it'll show you the billing in your currency, okay? If I choose 2 seats, you'll see that it goes up by $15 Canadian. It's $10 American, okay? So if I want 1 seat, now if you have the loyalty link, you'll end up over on this page and you'll see that the price is lower. And you'll see that the loyalty discount has been applied and it's now $84 Canadian, which is the $59 US, okay? If you lose that link and you're not sure how to get there, there's a link at the bottom here that says Luminar with the loyalty discount, and it will take you to there, okay? So let's get back to the slides. Now I'm probably going to have to scroll through them all again. Bear with me while I get to the end here. So we're going to do Q&A now. If you have any other questions that I haven't answered, I see that there's a lot of stuff happening in the chat, and there's 32 questions below. So I'm hoping we've got an hour and 20 minutes to get through all of those, and I will stay to the end. The maximum time we can do on the webinar is 2 hours. Okay. Bernadette says she pre-ordered it. Awesome. Great job. Good choice. Okay, so I see in the polls that 72% of you have Luminar 4. Okay, that's great. And I see that, a good split of you are using Luminar as a standalone, 39%, and 42% are using it as a plugin for Lightroom. So if you're already using it as a plugin for Lightroom, I would say go ahead and pre-order. Your workflow is not going to change at all because you're not using the catalog that's in Luminar. So go ahead and get that. That's what I would do. Okay. All right, let's get to the questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the questions that came in by email first. Actually, I'll do it the other way around. I'll do the questions that are in the live here because you guys are here. So I want to make sure I answer that. Okay, so Marguerite says, I'd like to know how much hard drive space. I believe I answered that in the slides. So you just need 10 gigs, but obviously the more space you have, the better. Right? Ruth answered, is this a new version or an add-on? No, it's not an add-on. I believe I've already answered that as well, that it is a new program. Right? Lots of people pre-ordering. Good job, guys. Okay, Carrie wants to know what happened to never buying it again. Okay, so here's the thing, Carrie, is nobody is forcing you to buy Luminar AI. And if you just say, okay, I don't want to buy it, you keep using Luminar 4 or whatever version you have, and it keeps working. Okay, so you do not have to buy it. Okay, so this is an optional. So no software maker in the world provides free updates to a program forever and ever and ever. Okay, so what they generally do is, like for example, when I got my new computer, I had to pay for Microsoft Office again. Okay, so I had about a 5-year-old version and it won't run on my new operating system, so I had to pay for Microsoft Office. I don't complain about that. I just know that's part of, I've updated my hardware and my software, so I need to update theirs as well, okay? It's also unrealistic to expect a company to update old software indefinitely, okay? So like I said, if you don't ever want to buy it again, keep using the one you're using and you're good to go, okay? When Adobe had their old model, when you could just update annually, it was actually a lot more expensive than the current even purchase, the monthly model, which is $10 a month for Adobe. It was more, like I think I remember paying about $250 to upgrade every year. So it was more expensive, but you could skip 1 year. Okay, so that's where this comes in too. So you can skip a year, you can skip 2 years, you can skip as long as you want, okay? But as soon as you update your computer or your operating system, if it doesn't support the old version that you're running, you may have to update, okay? Sharice wants to know, is the software sold on a one-time cost or annual renewal? I think I've answered that already. It's a one-time fee, okay? And the annual renewal and the membership thing is just for Luminar X. Edward wants to know, what is the planned length of this webinar? Well, based on the number of questions, I'll probably be going for another hour. If you can't stay to watch it all, Edward, you will get a replay as soon as it's available. Okay. I am planning on posting this on the website for people that aren't joining live or couldn't join into the webinar as well, so you'll get a chance to watch the replay later. Okay. Diane says, I did not answer the second poll question as I have just purchased Luminar 4 and haven't used it yet, but I use Photoshop CC, Lightroom, and Photoshop Elements. So I would use it as an add-on to one of those. Okay, so here's another question that happens a lot, is that what happens if I just bought Luminar 4, right? So if you just bought Luminar 4 and you decide you want Luminar AI instead, okay, just contact Skylum support, and I'm sure that they would be happy to refund your purchase, especially if you haven't used it yet, Diane, and you can go ahead and pre-order Luminar AI, and they will cancel your purchase on Luminar 4, okay? If you have purchased Luminar 4 way back when, and now you've decided that it's just not going to work for you, you don't like the direction it's going, do the same thing, okay? And I know this is some questions that came up by email is, what happens if I'm not happy with their direction, right? Even if it's past the 30 days, they've said to get in touch with them on a case-by-case basis. And if you truly feel that you don't want it and you're unhappy with it, I do believe that they will refund your money. However, be careful of that, because that means that you will not have the program anymore. So if you paid for Luminar 4 a year ago and you've been using it for a year and you say, okay, I'm not happy, and they give you a refund, it's going to deactivate Luminar 4. So you will not be able to access any of your images or any of your edits inside of it anymore, okay? So just contact support if you have any questions around refunding or switching your license, okay? Marty wants to know, how will I be able to deal with reflections in the water when I do a sky replacement? Let me put myself back on the screen here. Okay. So yes, you will be able to do that. That was actually one of the questions that I asked in one of the briefings that I did with the Skylum team. And they said that the new tool, there will be a new tool that will sort of replace layers that will be able to do local adjustments, things like dodging and burning in certain areas or applying filters. So there will be a way to do a sky replacement with a reflection. I just don't know what that will look like yet, but there will be, yes. Magdalena asked, what are templates? Okay, I think I answered that a bit earlier. So basically, templates are going to be a suggestion of what the Luminar AI thinks that you should do with that image. So they will be grouped in categories like portrait, landscape, and so on. So if you have a landscape image, it's going to recognize that and say, here are, several landscape templates that we suggest for a starting point for this image. So they're a suggested starting point. Marty wants to know, how will it work for animal eyes? That's a good question. I would say that that would be something that you would want to do if you pre-order the software and you get into that Luminar Insider forum, ask that question there, because they're still developing bits of the program. I don't know right now if it recognizes animal faces, but that would be great for somebody who's doing wildlife. Absolutely. So great question. Sharice wants to know, will Luminar 4 still be going to be available and upgraded? Yes, it's going to be available. You can still purchase Luminar 4. And as I said, it will be supported and updated until the end of next year. So 1 year from the time that Luminar AI is out. Joseph says, I purchased it and did not get the courtesy discount. So do you mean did you use the right link that we placed it below? There's two links. One was loyalty discount. how much did you pay for it, Joseph? Put that in the chat. And if you didn't, maybe just email their support, and I'm sure they'd be happy to give you the difference as a discount. Okay. Karen, you said the same thing. Just email support@skylum.com if you didn't get the loyalty discount. So that means that's for people that have a current licensed version of the Skylum software. So they'll be able to verify that you are an existing customer and get you the difference back. Okay. Jim wants to know, does Luminar AI include digital asset management, and can you add, edit metadata? So yes, it has a library and a catalog, just like Luminar 4 does. And again, I have not seen it, but it does not have the metadata adding. And that's where I talked about those are the things that if you need a more robust program like Lightroom, it's not going to have those things, at least not out of the gate. Those are some things that they said may come down the line, but they're not saying for sure yet whether they will have it and what that will look like. Because again, they're trying to simplify how that gets added, because those things are complicated in the other programs, and they're trying to figure out what is the best way to build that in so that you can add or edit metadata in a simpler fashion. Dave J says, is a $59 one-time charge? Yes. So generally, when you buy the software, what they say is that all the updates to that version are free. So for example, Luminar 4 came out last November, and we're on Luminar 4.3 now. So that means there's already been 3 updates to it, and there'll probably be at least 2 or 3 more by the end of next year. Okay. So the $59 when you purchase it is going to include all of the updates until the next major update. Okay, if that makes sense. Generally, that's for 1 year. Paul says, I bought a new computer, but Luminar is still very slow, eating up all my memory. If you could post in the chat, Paul, what your specs are on your computer, that's a really hard question to answer because it really depends on a number of things. It depends on the type of hard drive you have, the amount of RAM that you have, how much space is left on the hard drive. I'm assuming if it's new, if you're using a lot of layers, like I mentioned earlier, that could be doing it. Okay. So send me your specs. If we don't get that answer here, send it to me by email, and we'll see if we can take a look at that. Okay. John says in the chat that perhaps, oops, can't stop answering this question apparently. John says perhaps the early bird limit of 30,000 has reached. I don't think so. It should be still the case. Okay. Would you personally use Sean wants to know, would you personally use Luminar AI as a standalone editor? I use Luminar 4 as a plugin for Lightroom, so probably not. But when I demonstrate things, I use it as both. So I will be doing both. I don't know if that helps you. Apparently, I can't stop answering the questions, Rob. Webinar Ninja is not letting me answer these. Mark these as answered. I already answered that one. Sorry, I'm having some technical issues here. It's not letting me answer my questions, so bear with me here for a second. Edward wants to know, annual fee or one-time charge? I believe I've answered that already. That is a one-time charge. I'm not sure what's happening with my answering here, so I'm just going to keep going. Okay. Steve wants to know, is the regular Luminar going away? I'm not sure what you mean by regular. Regular as in Luminar AI, Luminar 4. Luminar 4 is not going away. It's just changing, okay? So it's changing into Luminar AI. Hope that answers that. David, can I edit raw photos? Absolutely, yes. All the Luminar products can work on raw photos. Okay, now my thing's working again. Yay. Okay, Letitia wants to know. So when we will have 2 programs for a while, Luminar 4 and AI, after that AI will replace Luminar 4 if you have that. Well, they'll continue both still running, okay? So if there are things in Luminar 4 that you like that are not inside Luminar AI, as long as your operating system still supports it, you can still run both. So if you're running a plugin, if you're running a plugin to Lightroom, you can choose which one to use. Okay, so I hope that answers that question. Nancy says, on the Skylum website, it doesn't ask if you have Luminar 4 or a place to add it on another computer. Sorry, I'm not sure what that means, Nancy, about loyalty discount or getting other licenses. You'll need to contact support to help you with that one, because I'm not really sure what you're seeing or what's happening there. Linda asked, will Luminar 4 still be supported? I've answered that one already. Ron wants to know, are there benefits of keeping Luminar 4? As I mentioned, there are a few things that may not transfer over to Luminar AI. There may be some deprecated filters that don't come through. So if you purchase Luminar AI and you have Luminar 4, I would run them both for a while. And ultimately, I talked about preparing for the migration. So if you plan on moving over to Luminar AI, what you would want to do is then take all the photos that you've worked on in Luminar 4 and export them as a high-res TIFF or JPEG, so then you can add them to Luminar AI and continue having the access to them there. Okay, eventually, Luminar 4 will stop working if you update your operating system on your computer and it doesn't support it anymore. Okay, so there is benefits of keeping both, and you have 15 months to plan for that migration. Linda wants to know, with Luminar 4, the purchased looks presets had to reside in a folder outside of Luminar. Is that corrected? I'm not sure what you mean. That's similar to Lightroom and how Photoshop and Lightroom work as well. All of your presets, the actual file that contains the information about the preset is in a folder, right? So yes, that is the same. I believe that's going to work the same. And the benefit of that is that you can share them, right? And how you put them in the folders changes how they appear in your program as well. Can you use, Ivy wants to know, can you use Luminar 4 and AI as plugins for Lightroom and Photoshop? Yes. As I just mentioned, if you keep both of them, you will be able to use both of them. Thanks, Pete. So Pete Van den Eye is here on the webinar as well. He's also a Luminar advocate as well, and he's done a webinar recently on this. So thanks for that, Pete. Lise, will there be a French version? Yes, there's multiple language support, including French, Spanish, Dutch, I believe. There's several different language versions, but to answer your question, Lise, there will be a French version. Okay. Brian, does AI have a DAM like Luminar, or do you need to use ITB? I don't know what ITB is, sorry. Yes, it will have a similar version. They're just not transferable from Luminar 4 to AI. Rocco, will you be showing some before and after examples? I showed some earlier. Those are the only ones I have, unfortunately, because as I mentioned, I do not have the software yet, so I can't show you before and after images other than the screenshots that I've been sent at this point. I'm trying to do these rapid fire. Norm, is Skylum ever going to improve the digital asset management of their libraries in Luminar 4 or Luminar AI? I'm not sure what you mean by improve. I'd have to know more specifically what improvements you're looking for. So again, what I would recommend there is if you pre-order the Luminar AI and join the insiders group, you'll be able to ask those questions and put forward feature requests. Because here's the thing, if 30,000 people join the insiders group and they all ask for the same thing, the likelihood of that getting built into the program is higher than if one person asks. Okay, so that's a good place to ask that question. Robbie wants to know, will this be able to work on a Linux platform? I don't know, doubtful. I understand there isn't a Linux version right now, and I would probably say no on that one. Sorry. David wants to know, is Luminar AI compatible with Capture One? Do you mean as a plugin? No, it's not. It only works, as I said, with Lightroom, Photoshop, and Mac Photos programs as plugins. The thing with working with a plugin is the other software and the other company has to be amenable to allowing that software to work with theirs. And they do not have that type of relationship with Capture One yet. Is that something that may occur in the future? I'm going to take an educated guess and say no. Capture One is a really, really advanced pro program. It's more advanced and complex and expensive than Lightroom. And the people that are using Capture One are not the same target audience and the same target users that is going to be Luminar AI. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably not. Dawn wants to know, I purchased AI but didn't get the discount. I mentioned that earlier. Just contact support, Dawn, support@skylum.com, and see about checking your license and see if you can get a reimbursement of the difference. Okay, that goes for anybody. Shirley wants to know, in your pros and cons, you mentioned how you felt it stacked up against GIMP and another editor. How do you feel it stacks up against Affinity? So I've tested Affinity in the past. I tried it about 3 years ago. I haven't looked at it recently. I would call Affinity a dumbed down version of Photoshop. It's like a Photoshop Lite. I would say it competes more with Photoshop Elements and Photoshop than it does with Luminar. Affinity has no digital asset management, and it's more of an open one image, process it, save it, and close it. Okay, so I don't think they are the same at all in terms of how Luminar and Affinity compare. I also found Affinity clunky and not very user-friendly, so I wasn't a fan of it. Sherry or Cherry, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. If you pre-order, can you get a refund if you don't like it? As I mentioned earlier, if you purchase it within the pre-order period, once you get your hands on it, you have 30 days after you get it to ask for a refund if you are not happy with it. John, if your first seat is for Windows, can you get your second seat for Mac? Yes, absolutely you can. That's what we do in our house. So I'm a Mac person and Rob is a Windows person, and they work nicely just like that. Okay. Lise wants to know, is there a version that's standalone and another that's plug-in? No, that was the old Flex and what they tried to do with Flex, and they eliminated that because it got confusing. So if you have Luminar 4 or AI, they are either standalone or plug-in. I have Luminar 4 and I use it as both. Sue says Affinity Photo is one cost and all updates are free. I would have to confirm. I don't know much about Affinity, but I would confirm that all updates for the end of time are free. No software company can afford to do that, so it's not something that people are able to do. They have to spend money on research and development, and if all their users always get free updates, I would hazard a guess that it's only for a certain time period or major updates. Jerry says, unable to use your link. I'm not sure which one you're trying to use, Jerry, but try the ones that are on the offers. There's one that's for loyalty and one that's for if you do not have another version. Try those. Rob, if you could post the links in the chat again. That was for Jerry with the link. Okay, Magdalena says, I'm ordering right now. Missed the part where you said about, no, it's not Luminar X. Luminar X is the program, the membership program that gives you the extra assets. If you're not sure, Magdalena, just message me later and we can get you the right link, right? Links on the site do not work, Carrie says. Bill says, unclick the Luminar X link to just get the AI package. Yes, correct. Okay. I'm not sure which links you're clicking on, Carrie. So check the links that Rob just posted. Carrie, if you already have that. If you're not getting the links to work, just email me after. I'm going to send them out with the replay as well. So sit tight. In the next couple of hours, once the webinar ends, the replay will be available and I will send the video replay with the links for you after that. Magdalena, there's no promo code. You have to use the right link. If you aren't using the right link, you may see the higher $99 Canadian price. The link to get the lower price one is here. Let me just grab it for you. I'm going to put that in the comment. Oops. Let me grab this. Sorry, trying to copy and paste. Okay. There we go. Okay, I want to start to get to some of these email questions. When you say you've abandoned the roadmap, Clyde wants to know, what is it they're not doing anymore? I had assumed catalog management, and now it sounds like that might still be in AI's future. Yes, they still have catalog, but some of the things that were in the roadmap, like the things that they promised, like editing the metadata, ITPC data, metadata, renaming, virtual copies, those kinds of things that they have said they are not going to do. So it's probably going to come out with a new roadmap soon. So guys, those of you that are asking questions about the discount in the questions, if you could just hold off on those. I'm not going to answer any more questions about loyalty discounts. Those have come up several times. If you go to the page, the sales page, and click pre-order now using the link, either of them, you should see it. I don't know where you are located, Lee, so I can't really say. You have to copy and paste the link from here to get the loyalty discount. Try that, and it should just show right where I showed you earlier, where it says a loyalty discount applied. Okay. And if you still can't get it, please just email me after, and I'll make sure you get the correct link. I can't continue answering these because I got a lot of other questions about the actual program I need to cover. Bill says, when Luminar 4 was released, the DAM was unusable on my computer. It took 1 or 2 updates for the performance. Is that likely to be the problem with AI? I would say not, Bill, because they've had a year to work through some of those things. And like I said, they're working on performance and speed now, and ease of use over adding those extra tools. So they've decided that their focus is then on performance as opposed to the high-end tools. So I would say not, but again, if you pre-order it and you're not happy with it, you have 30 days to get a refund. Dan says, does Luminar 4 save every edit to disk? I'm assuming that you mean Luminar AI. There's a huge number of image files in the pictures folder. I'm not really sure what you're asking about there. I would need to speak to you on a private basis on that one. Okay, I'm going to start answering some questions here. Sherry, I've already answered about getting a refund. I've already answered Luminar X. If you missed the answer to Luminar X, please go back and watch the replay. Luminar X is a program to get you some extras. It is not about the program itself. Okay. Kathy says, how do I credit you when ordering Luminar AI? You just use our links, Nana, and as long as you use my link, we will get the credit. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Okay. Christiane says, can't reach your link. I'm going to post it here again. This is the loyalty one. And if you do not have the loyalty, if you're not already an existing Luminar user, use the other one. Okay, so just use that. Cherry asked, will it be compatible with Big Sur update that's coming? I'm told that yes, they will do that. Again, anytime an operating system updates, the software has to communicate with Apple or with Windows to get that working. So there's probably going to be a period where it may not be because they need to communicate with Apple. So their intention is that yes, it will be. Okay, it just may not be immediate. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start answering some of these email questions because there's a lot more. Richard asked about using it with a plugin for Mac Photos. The advantage is that Mac Photos is not a super powerful editing program. I'm not a fan. I've actually banned it on my computer. So Luminar is a much more powerful program. So you'll have the benefits of having the sorting tools inside of Mac Photos, but the power of Luminar. Right? Okay. Now, let me get to these email questions. All right. So, Sean says, will it run on Apple Silicon natively? I believe so. Again, I think that's what they're saying. I'm just looking over here because I have it on my other computer, guys, my other monitor. How's it handle the catalog? I think I've answered a lot of your questions already, Sean. If you're still here, let me know. Does it generate and keep previews? I've had a pain. It generated every single time. I think that was a Windows problem. I haven't experienced that with Mac. Right? So contact support. Yes, it's my understanding that it will be much faster than Luminar 4. Okay. Sylvia says, will there be another one next year? If so, why do we have to keep buying upgrades every year? Again, I think I answered that already. You do not have to. Nobody's making you do it. It's not mandatory. It's optional. Okay, so you will get upgrades for usually a year, and once they come out with a major upgrade, like let's say there's going to be Luminar AI 2 or 3 or what have you, then you get to decide if you want to purchase that and spend the money on the upgrade or not. Right? So it's not mandatory. Vivian wants to know, will it incorporate all the current features of Luminar 4.3? I believe it will incorporate most of them, as I've said. I don't know which ones yet because I haven't seen it. So it's my understanding that it's going to have most and more. Okay? Gay asked a question about price again and buying it per year. So same answer as I just mentioned. You don't have to buy it every year. And if you're happy with Luminar 4, just keep using that. Okay? Marguerite says, I'm curious about Luminar software and how well it works as a plugin for Luminar Classic. Will it open raw files that have been converted to DNG? So this issue with DNG is that if they've been converted to DNG in a program that is not compatible with Luminar, like for example, if you convert them using Topaz or some other program that doesn't talk to Luminar now, no, those DNGs will not be readable. Okay. For example, Topaz isn't compatible as a plugin. Okay. So if you're using an Adobe product, yes, it will be because they talk to each other. Okay. And it works fabulous as a plugin for Lightroom Classic. Devon says, I feel like Luminar left me hanging with version 4.3. I'm not trusting them again for a while. I totally get that. And I totally get why people feel abandoned and lack of trust. And they have done sort of an about face and changed their direction on where they're going with the program. So as I mentioned in the slides, there's a couple of options that I'm going to present for you over the next few weeks. You might want to look at those, or wait till Luminar AI comes out and then make your decision, right? But I totally understand how you're feeling. Terry asked, how is it different than Luminar 4? I believe I've covered that already. David says, I had problems running Luminar 4 with speed issues. I've addressed some of those already. It looks like they're cranking out new releases as fast as they can, making old versions obsolete. Is there an upgrade path for Luminar 4? Is it considered a new product? Yes, I've already answered that. And I don't think that their updates are any faster than most other softwares. I know when Adobe was not subscription and you didn't pay it monthly, that there was upgrades every year. So annually is pretty common. And again, you're not forced to do that update. It's optional and you still own the version that you paid for. Okay. Lastly, the name AI and their advertising, I'm guessing it will be leveraging looks and further automation for one click. Is that your impression? If so, this is not for me. So I did cover who the product I thought was for and who it is not for. You still have plenty of controls over how you can adjust the settings once you apply them, just like you do in Luminar 4. Sean, yes, you can expect a trial copy once it's fully launched. So if you want to wait to see the trial, you have to wait till December, but then you won't get the pre-order price. David wants to know how to get the pre-order price. Covered that already. What's the difference between the pricing model of Lightroom and Luminar? Are they planning to release Luminar with different names and ask us to pay without fixing bugs of earlier versions? They're asking us to pay in advance for products which does not exist. They did not fix the bugs in the current versions. Again, I totally understand that, and I totally understand a lot of people's frustrations with that. Again, same answer. I would say the pricing model of Luminar is you purchase it and you own it. So if you decide to upgrade each year, then yes, you have to pay the upgrade price. If you decide not to, you don't have to pay that, but you still own the program. With Adobe, you must pay monthly to have it. And if you stop paying, I know a couple of people have done this just to test it. Your catalog is still there and you can see your images, but you can't edit them. You can't edit them or you can't export them. So the program basically ceases to function. Right? Yes, they're asking you to pay in advance for a product which doesn't exist yet. They did this last year with Luminar 4 as well. And Same answer. You're not being forced to pre-order it. You can wait till it comes out and make your decision once you test it. Right? Robert says, the AI in Luminar 4 gives in most cases a good starting point, but I need to make selective changes to exposure, contrast, etc. in areas of image or to a single color in part of the image. The publicity suggests that masking isn't available. So will this change be possible? Yes, masking still will be available. So sorry if that's not clear. I'm going to move my thing over here. Sorry if that's not clear. Yes, masking still will be available. So you will be able to do those same things with Luminar AI. Alice, I'm really glad you're doing this. Thank you, Alice. I have Luminar 4 and I've been getting all kinds of emails about AI, but I'm very confused. Are they going to a subscription base? If so, it will be so long Luminar. I assume you'll be sending the links once the webinar is played. Yes, so I've covered all of that. No, Luminar is not going to a subscription model. Luminar X is something completely different, okay? Rocco asked, is Luminar AI able to sharpen a soft focus image? To some degree, I would say. Depends if you're talking about soft focus or out of focus. If you have something that's out of focus, I would say you're going to need a more powerful program like Photoshop, or to be honest, I'm going to be looking at Topaz's Sharpen, which has a lot of AI. And Pete, who's still in the webinar, maybe he can put this in the chat, did a test on Sharpen, and he said it was better than Photoshop. So I'll be testing those products for sharpening images. Lee says, I'm working with Luminar 4. I would like to know if that edition will reserve a place for our own creativity. I like the fact that I can add skies, my own skies. If everything is AI, what can I do with mine? So I think I answered that already. Yes, you will still be able to add your own skies. You will still be able to do a sky replacement, and with your own images, you'll be able to add your own textures, all of those same things. It just has additional AI tools. Sorry, Lisa, I can't do it en français for you. Sherry or Cherry, I wish I knew how to pronounce your name. I'm interested in the Luminar package. I've done very little post-editing, even though I have Luminar and Lightroom and Photoshop, mainly because I did not have the time to learn either program. As a raw novice to post-editing, can the Luminar program be used by itself, or does one need Lightroom or Photoshop for basic edits and then touch-ups using Luminar? Actually, I would recommend that you start with Luminar and just ditch Lightroom and Photoshop if you are an absolute beginner. I did a review of several softwares a few years ago, and I found that Lightroom and Photoshop they're much harder to grasp as a beginner, and people struggle with them a lot more. If you go to digitalphotomentor.com/7day, if you could put that link in the chat for me, please, Rob. I have a 7-day editing challenge where you can actually download a version of Luminar 4, so you can still get the trial of Luminar 4 just to get an idea of what it's all about. Do my 7-day editing challenge, and you tell me if it's easier than Lightroom. Barry says, I'm curious to know what the minimum requirements are for computer. I've covered that already. As you may know, I have the minimum requirements for the existing version, and it crashes after a handful of edits, though I've never had such issues with Lightroom. I do know, Barry, that I know they got back to you and to me about that your edits were using the erase tool multiple times, and it was causing multiple layers. So they've done away with the layers and they've improved the cloning tool. So I do believe that it's going to fix a lot of those problems that you are having. So again, I'm trusting that that's going to be the case. But once again, if you pre-order it and you get it and you're not happy with it, you still have 30 days to ask for a refund. Liz asked about Luminar AI replacing Luminar 4 in a year or two. Yes, in terms of updates moving forward. Yes, you continue to use both, but it will not transfer, as we said. If you only have AI and no other photo editor, is it a complete workflow? Yes, absolutely. I do believe that it's going to give you everything that you need. Right? They've also, again, I can't confirm this, but this is speculation and things that people like myself and educators in the Skylum realm have requested, which is compatibility with Aurora HDR, so that Luminar AI and Aurora work together so that you can use Aurora as a plugin for Luminar and vice versa. So that's something that has been requested, and they've said they would consider. Okay, Danelle, with all the looks and additions I've purchased in the past, have I wasted my investment in those add-ons for Luminar 4? I've addressed that already. No, absolutely not. Those will continue to work. If they're slightly different, you can edit them and resave, but they will transfer. Okay, Lyndon. Okay, he's got a long question, so I'm just going to paraphrase a little bit. Okay. He's got a lot of photos, 126,000 pictures. So I guess what I need to know is, will Luminar improve my capability to process photos, and will the result be better than Photoshop? Okay, so here's the answer to that question is, all of these tools are just that. They're just tools. We could get into the Canon versus Nikon versus Fuji versus Sony debate, the Mac versus PC debate. They're all just tools. So whatever tool you use, my suggestion is learn to use it to the best of your ability and to the best of its ability. And neither is better than the other. They are just different. Okay. Photoshop goes much farther and has much more capabilities. It has design capabilities. If you're doing things like composite images, heavy duty masking, cutting images out of the background, then I highly suggest you stick with Photoshop. If you are a professional working photographer, I highly suggest that you have the Adobe package. It's the industry standard for professionals, and then add on Luminar as a tool that can help you do things faster. Okay, I use Luminar on almost all of my portraits because I find that the portrait AI is much faster than me doing it myself in Photoshop or Lightroom, and in many cases, it's better. Right. I originally started using Luminar because I took an image on my phone and processed it. Well, it was from my Fuji, transferred it to my phone, processed it with Snapseed on my phone, and I got a better result, and I couldn't match it in Lightroom, no matter what I did. Then I opened it in Luminar and got a better result. So I was able to do in Luminar what Lightroom couldn't do in terms of the style, and for me, I was sold. Right? Mike Myers asks, I've been following this and think it may solve my problem for editing photos. I've been using Lightroom and have not signed up for the subscription as I don't do enough editing to justify it. So I'm assuming you have an older version of Lightroom. Sorry, let me just have a sip of water. I don't want to skip the upgrades as that would ultimately affect other applications. Oh, sorry. At some point I know I will not be able to run Lightroom because my operating system will get updated. I don't want to skip upgrades as that would affect other applications. Therefore, I'm looking for a replacement for Lightroom. Does AI enable me to perform manual editing compared to what I would do in Lightroom? I've addressed that in some degree earlier. The editing, yes, you can absolutely create great images using just Luminar. If you want the sorting and cataloging and tagging, keywording things, then Lightroom is you're going to need some sort of a program like Lightroom. Okay, so if you want it to replace all of the things that Lightroom does, I would say no. If you want to replace it for editing and you don't already use Lightroom, you're not going to miss anything, I don't think. Terry says, tell me they've actually improved the speed on Windows. I actually love that their aim is an approach they've taken. However, I cannot use it and be productive. Even a simple edit requires too long of a wait. Again, this depends on, I would need to know your computer specs and so on. I do know that speed is one thing they're working hard on right now. I have purchased the last two versions, had to reclaim the cost on their money-back guarantee. I really want this to work. I will continue to use Lightroom and Photoshop until there's some improvement. Appears to be down to memory management or lack of it from what I can see. I have 16 gig memory and I can run Luminar and Photoshop side by side, no problem. Luminar cannot cope. Yes, I think a lot of that is going to be addressed. So again, either pre-order it and give it a try and do the refund again if it just still doesn't work for you, or wait for it to come out and do the trial. Okay. Clyde asked about justify moving from a one-time purchase to a monthly subscription. I've answered that. It's not a monthly subscription. John Wallingford. Okay, John said a lot of things in his email. I'm new to photo editing. I have no software yet. Does committing to Luminar lock out changing? In other words, is there a better program to start with that will not limit my growth and flexibility? I believe I've answered that already as well. If you are just starting out, I would absolutely recommend Luminar over Photoshop and Lightroom for ease of use. And I don't feel that once you use it, you will feel limited in any way. Okay. Can a Luminar edited file be further edited by another program, as in back to the original or start over? Yes, both. Okay, so Luminar is a non-destructive editing program, which means that when you are finished editing in Luminar, you would then export or save out a new copy of it, whether that be original as RAW or JPEG. So you would then have a new JPEG. Okay, so if you want to then edit that version in another program, just go ahead and open that. If you want to open the original, you can open the original JPEG or RAW in the other program as well. And anything like Apple, Mac Photos, you can go back and forth as a plugin. Okay. He also asked about automatic tagging, things like date and face recognition. I don't know about face recognition, if that's something that's coming or not. Possibly. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't say. Jeff asked about upgrading. Is it worth it compared to Luminar 4? Again, I'm going to say yes. Just based on the fact that for me, the difference between Lightroom 3 or Luminar 3 and 4 was great enough to make the difference. And the things that I'm seeing that they're adding, I would recommend an upgrade. But again, if it comes down to cost, wait till it comes out or wait a year and get it next year. Make plans, right? Fred asked a very good question about who is the target audience. Is it for people that do not want to edit their pictures, or for those that can to use Lightroom and Photoshop, but it's faster and just as good, but to edit faster and just as good? I think I answered that already. It is for people that are not necessarily call themselves photographers. A lot of my students, and maybe you guys are the same, where you enjoy photography, but you may not call yourself a photographer. It could be for an architect. It could be for a person, like I said, who makes a product that takes photos and needs to sell them. So anybody that takes photos that wants to produce them and have them look good, that's who it's for. Okay. I would say that absolutely it's moving away. They are moving away from the professional photography market. Okay. But if you are a professional, continue to use Lightroom and Photoshop and use Luminar as an add-on for sure, because I find that it does things that, like I said, Lightroom doesn't do and can't do. I could do the same thing in Photoshop and take an hour, or do it in 3 minutes in Luminar, literally. Okay. Dave wants to know, does Luminar have a smart noise reduction function? I have not seen it yet. There is a noise reduction. I don't know about smart noise reduction. That would be another one to join the insider community and ask for the feature request. That would be a great one. Absolutely. Coral, I just purchased Luminar 4. Do I have to buy it again? It looks like separate products. It disappoints me because I just jumped on board. As I mentioned earlier, if you just got Luminar 4 and you haven't really used it yet, feel free to contact their support, and you can then probably transfer your purchase or get a refund on that and go ahead and pre-purchase AI, and you won't be out any money. Okay. Or if you want to run them both, then yes, you do have to purchase them both. Magdalena asked, I struggle to use Luminar because it takes forever to complete. Could be because of my desktop. Again, I can't answer that because I don't know what the specs are in terms of your graphics card, your RAM, hard drive space, the processing power of your computer, and so on. Okay, so there's too many variables there. I would say yes, give it a go. And it sounds like she's already getting the pre-order, so that's perfect. Lawrence, I've answered most of these replacing. Are there going to be updates to Luminar 4? Yes, for a year. Are the bugs in Luminar 4 going to be addressed? So again, they've promised updates for a year, so I can't say which bugs. I don't read the support forums, so I'm not sure which things your questions would be best asked to Skylum directly. I'm not sure which bugs specifically you're looking for fixes for. Boris, what are the similarities between Luminar AI and Lightroom Classic? I think I answered that already. Again, if you're currently using Lightroom and you want it for the cataloging features, Luminar is probably going to fall short. Again, if you feel like you're missing something, if you're brand new to editing or you're just using Luminar, you're probably not going to miss anything. Ed Barbieri asked, and I think he had to leave. What specifically are the improvements? What editing sliders will be enhanced? I covered some of that in the slide presentation about some of the new AI tools, and some of the improvements are going to be in the area of performance and speed. I use Apple Photos. Will it interface? Yes, it will interface with Apple Photos, and I would recommend using that workflow as a plugin for Photos, or ditch Photos and just use Luminar as your main. Okay, I already addressed Luminar and Aurora working together. That's, I believe, something that is to come. We hope. Catherine, I have Luminar 4 with AI structure and AI augmented and replace Sky. What more will the new Luminar give me? I covered some of those new features earlier in the slides. If you missed them, Catherine, just go back and watch the slide presentation again. Okay, if you already own Luminar 4, if you pre-order, Ray asked how much will it cost to upgrade. It is not an upgrade, it's a new purchase, so $59. Susan asked, will it integrate with Luminar 4? No, I've answered that already. H Days 49. I don't know your name. I'm guessing that's Hey Days. Personally, I like Luminar 4. Me too. And I've used it exclusively as a standalone editor. Other than some bugs that need to be addressed, like freezes and quitting unexpectedly, I'm satisfied with it. I use Windows 10. Will Luminar 4.3 continue to be approved? Yes, again, for 1 year. Are they removing the ability to do personal editing, relying on AI? No, you will still have the ability to adjust the sliders and so on, and other filters. Okay, and how long will this iteration last? It will last as long as it works on your operating system. Okay, so if you have Luminar 4, it will keep working until you update your operating system that isn't supported. Michelle Verbeek said, I do not wish to purchase a monthly subscription to Photoshop or Lightroom at this point in my life. I'm retired and I do this as a hobby. I would prefer you and many other people. I would prefer to purchase a program at one-time cost. I've looked at Luminar. I was looking at Luminar 4 when you sent this email. I would like to know what you would recommend for photo editing for someone like myself. I have knowledge of Photoshop. I believe I can learn a program as long as it's not too difficult. I would suggest, Luminar, Michelle, do what I said earlier just a few minutes ago about doing our 7-day challenge. Do digitalphotomentor.com/7day, the numeral 7. Get a trial version of Luminar 4 and see how easy it is for you to use. I think you're going to like it. And then if that impresses you, go ahead and get the pre-order of Luminar AI. Thomas, my question is, do you know if Luminar AI will have a close button with the option to save or not save message pop up, or will it be similar to Luminar 4 where you export or exit? So yes, it is a catalog-based program like Luminar 4 and like Lightroom. So you do not have to save every time you close the program. It saves the edits in the catalog. Okay, so when you want to finish the image, you do need to export it, but they will also have a new publish feature, which will then allow you to send it directly. So you would link up things like, I'm just guessing here, I don't know, things like Facebook, 500px, Flickr, SmugMug, things like that, where you'll be able to export directly from Luminar to those social media sharings or websites without having to export to your desktop first. Okay? So a publish option is coming. Gil asks, is it easy to install? I have a Mac and installing things can be difficult. Yes, I found it easy to install. I mean, you literally just get the DMG file that comes, you double click it to unzip it, run it, follow the instructions. Should be straightforward, but if you have trouble, the support team can help you with that. Philippa, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, asks, will you be able to merge the catalogs from Luminar 3 and 4? I addressed that earlier. No, you will not. Will there be improved facilities for organizing, comparing 2 or 3 photos together on the screen while choosing which one to delete from a particular shoot? Again, no, that's going to be more of an advanced or professional feature. So things like that are best set to either Lightroom or perhaps looking at one of the other options that I mentioned earlier, which I'll be reviewing. Marinette asked, I've had some problems with Luminar 3 crashing, and Apple sent me a message saying it will no longer support Skylum after Catalina. I was sent an email to Skylum and I'm waiting back. So I sent that on for you, Marinette, and the answer that I got was that you need to reply back to them with the specs of your computer and also what you're using. My guess, if you're using Luminar 3, that's a program which is already 2 years old and hasn't been updated for a year. So my guess is that it's Luminar 3 that's not going to be supported with the new Max after Catalina. So take a look at that, and in that case, then you would definitely have to update to Luminar AI. John asked about significant discount on Luminar AI for past users. We talked about that already. Jeanette asks, my question, will they still be developing 4? And Aurora, many of us will be soured by our dealings with Skylum if the answer is no. So the answer is yes, they will be updating and supporting Luminar 4 for another year, and they are going to be updating and supporting Aurora. There's no plans to get rid of Aurora. We did ask that question when we had our briefing, some that came up, and the answer was that there was no current plans to update Aurora because they felt that the product was satisfactory at this point. So if there's a point where there's feature requests or something is not working with Aurora, then they will update it, but they felt that the product is where they want it to be right now. Okay, I've got about 4 more email questions, and then I'm going to come back to any live questions here. I'm losing my voice, guys. Vivian asks, it makes no mention of masks and sliders. I've covered that already. Yes, you will still be able to use masks and sliders, and you will still have that control. If I pre-order and decide I like Luminar 4 better, can I get a refund? Yes, same thing. After 30 days after you get it, you have a chance of 30 days to ask for the refund. I might be willing to give it one more try. I purchased Luminar because of my suggestion that it's the easiest out of the box program and no subscriptions. Then came Luminar 2018, then came Luminar 3 and Luminar 4. Still seems like they haven't fixed the old problems. I can't help feeling a little bit duped. Maybe you can help me deal with that feeling. Hopefully I've already done that. Like I said, every major software developer has major updates at least once a year. So I don't think that they're trying to trick anybody, and they're being absolutely upfront and transparent with this new direction. And they are saying that, yes, we are shifting, that they've changed their minds on the direction that they're going for a number of reasons. And like I said, I totally understand why they're doing it, why they're going the new direction. Don't necessarily agree with dropping the old roadmap, but I still support Luminar, and I still believe that the product has a lot of great uses. Right? Hopefully I've answered that. Jane wants to know, will there be an easy way to create a watermark? That I don't know yet because I have not seen the program, so I will have to wait and see it first. Bill asked about requirements on the computer. I've covered that. Sanat's questions about Luminar 4 and compatibility, I've answered that. Hard drive space, comparability to Lightroom and Photoshop, I've answered that. Okay, Dave J asked, will I be able to explain how AI works? Does it look at the picture and make the edits adjustments? No, it doesn't make the adjustments for you. You still have to click on either a template or a look or adjust the sliders. So it's not just going to poof be there for you. And yes, you can edit those adjustments like you do in Luminar 4. Right? If Luminar AI is used as a plugin, will the edits made in Lightroom or Photoshop be preserved? Yes. So if you open Lightroom and you do your basic edits, then you take that image from Lightroom over to Luminar AI, do your thing there. When you go to export it, that's how you tell Lightroom you want to apply it to the edited version, not the original. That's where your Lightroom edits get preserved, is at the Lightroom level, not at Luminar level. Okay. Same thing with Photoshop. Okay. Okay. So I think I've answered most of those. Let me see what we've got here. I'm back over here with you guys. So Tom Jones asked me, I use Luminar 4 as a plugin for Lightroom and plan to use AI the same way. Should I delete 4 when I have AI loaded to improve performance? No, I don't think that's going to affect it, Tom. You can run side by side for a while, and then, like I said, plan for the migration. Do your exports of your edited images from Luminar 4, and then you can delete it. But there's no reason. I don't think it will slow down your computer if you just have the programs on your computer. Okay. Ray says, I have an iMac and a MacBook Pro. I only use Luminar AI on one of them at a time. I use iMac at home and MacBook traveling. I use a MacBook Pro. So I'm not sure what your question is, Ray. Is that about licensing? If that's about licensing, I would suggest that you get a second seat and put Luminar on both of them, and then you don't have to worry about having not enough licenses, because otherwise, if you only have one license, you have to transfer the license from device to device every single time. So I hope that answers everybody's questions. Just looking at the polls now, and final questions. Okay. Wow. Whew. I feel like I need a cigarette or something now. All right. I hope that I answered all of your questions. If I didn't, please email me back. I'm going to be posting this video on the website tomorrow. It'll be available to you because you registered for the webinar. You'll get a replay. So if you missed something, or you had to leave early, or you joined late, you'll get the replay in a couple of hours. Usually it's available within 2 to 4 hours of the time that I close it off. So from now, just looking at the chat. Thanks for the presentation. Awesome. Sorry, Rob is telling me to look at my phone because he's sending me a question over here. I will do that. Dan asks, after editing images in Luminar 4, the pictures folders holding every updated image, I have hundreds. Again, I think that was an issue with Windows. I've never experienced that with Mac. I don't have that problem. And I believe that's something that they have addressed or are addressing with updates to Luminar 4. So there will be a Luminar 4.4 and potentially 4.5 with updates to fix some of those things. Okay, did I get them all? Am I missing anything? Thanks for sticking around. I'll check through all of your chat questions a bit later. And if I missed anything, email me back. Just reply to the webinar email. And if you have any questions or the links weren't working, let me know and I will get back to you. But I'm going to go and have some lunch. And thank you all for sticking around and for listening and for trusting me. Again, I try and be as honest as possible with these things. And yes, I'm a Luminar and Skylum ambassador, but I do not work for the company and I'm not a company representative. So I don't speak for them. I just speak from my own experience, and I will always tell you straight up what I think about something. So in this case, like I said, if you're disappointed with the direction, I will be looking at some alternatives for you and trying to help you find the answer. So take care, everyone. And until next time, I will see you around.